But this is what Raven represented, this love, this unity. This is what she always wanted. She just wanted people to be good to each other, love each other, come together with times like this.
In the Glover Park neighborhood of Northwest Washington, D.C., Raven Edwards raised 3 children in an apartment she had worked hard to make safe. She had lupus. Her kidneys had failed. She was on dialysis and waiting for a transplant. By any measure, her plate was already full. She had also ended her relationship with a man named Stefon Jeter, the father of her youngest child, and told him clearly, co-parenting only. Jeter responded with threats, with stolen keys, with messages that wished her harm. Her family knew. They had always been worried. They had paid to change her locks more than once. On the afternoon of February 11th, 2026, Stefon Jeter showed up at her building. Her children were outside with her. Raven Edwards did not survive that afternoon. Here is who Raven was before any of that. 34 years old, a mother of 3, a woman who, by her family's account, never raised her voice. Not at her kids, not at the people around her, not even when she had every reason to. She had attended the University of the District of Columbia. She loved the theater. She loved writing. She had once competed for Miss DC, and for the last stretch of her life, she was fighting her own body. Lupus had taken both of her kidneys, not partially, completely. She was on dialysis 3 times a week just to stay functional, and her name was on a transplant waiting list. She wasn't working because she physically could not. No income, 3 children, a body running on borrowed time, and she still showed up for those kids every single day. Playground trips, birthday gifts she picked out herself carefully, present in a way that people remembered. Her mother, Lucy Edwards, said it plainly. Raven was her best friend, the one she could always depend on, the one the family believed would be the thread that held everyone together.
When I tell you she never did anything to anyone, you couldn't even get her to say nothing bad.
She was holding a lot, more than most people could. Stefon Jeter was 35 years old and the father of Raven's youngest child, a 3-year-old boy named Million. At some point, Raven made a decision that seemed straightforward from the outside. She ended the romantic relationship. She was not cutting Jeter out of his son's life. She was not asking for the impossible. She just wanted to co-parent and move on. Jeter could not accept that. What followed was not grief, not confusion, not even an awkward attempt to adjust. It was control. He took her apartment keys, more than once, forcing Raven's family to pay out of pocket to change the locks. He sent threatening messages. He didn't just express anger, he wished her dead. Specifically, repeatedly. Her mother knew. Her siblings knew. Her aunt knew. Lucy Edwards later said it directly. I've always been worried about Raven. All of us have, because it's been an ongoing situation. They were not surprised by his behavior. They were afraid of where it was heading.
It's been an ongoing situation with him threatening her, wishing her death, taking keys to her apartment. We've had to pay to change locks. And at this point, my daughter has lupus. Both of her kidneys weren't working. She's not working herself.
And here is the part that needs to land properly. Raven was not ignoring the danger. She was not in denial. She was trying to get out. She was trying to move. She was doing all of it. The distance, the changed locks, the boundaries, while managing kidney failure and raising 3 children without an income. Leaving is not a single moment for most women in these situations. It is a slow, complicated process that requires resources and stability she was still trying to build. She was in the middle of that process on February 11th. That afternoon started like any other in Glover Park, a residential neighborhood, quiet streets, the kind of place where neighbors recognize each other's kids. Raven's apartment building sat on W Street Northwest, near 41st Street, and around 4:30 in the afternoon, her children were with her outside. Stefon Jeter showed up. What began as a confrontation did not stay contained. It escalated fast, loud, physical, out in the open, and it ended with gunshots in the courtyard. Raven was shot multiple times. She died outside her own building, the place she had changed the locks to protect. Her 10-year-old daughter, Royal, was shot in the arm. She survived, but her family later said something that is difficult to sit with. Royal was targeted because she had a habit of standing up for her mother, a 10-year-old who had made it her job to protect the woman raising her, and Jeter shot her for it. Raven's 8-year-old son was also there. He was not physically hurt, but he watched everything. and then Jeter grabbed. Million, his own 3-year-old, got into his black pickup truck and left. He left one child bleeding in the courtyard. He left one child standing in shock. He left Raven on the ground, and he drove away with the baby. Within minutes, an Amber Alert was issued across the D.C. region. The search for Million had begun. The Metropolitan Police Department moved immediately. Officers canvassed the area around W Street. Alerts went out to surrounding jurisdictions. The description of Jeter's black pickup truck was circulated across D.C. and into Maryland. Everyone was looking for the same thing: a 3-year-old boy in a vehicle with a man who had just committed murder. That is an uncomfortable sentence to sit with. His own father, his own son, and he took that child with him. Whether it was instinct, calculation, or something else entirely, Jeter drove out of D.C. and across the line into Prince George's County, Maryland. Police tracked the vehicle. A pursuit was initiated. It didn't last long. The chase ended in a crash. When officers reached the truck, Jeter was inside, suffering from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. He was transported for medical treatment and later pronounced dead. He had shot a woman on dialysis in front of her children. He had shot a 10-year-old girl, and when police closed in, he couldn't face what came next. Whatever accountability should have followed, whatever answers Raven's family was owed, he made sure none of it would happen. The 3-year-old was not in the vehicle. For a moment, that fact sharpened everything. Where was Million? Detectives worked fast. Former addresses, known associates, family connections tied to Jeter, and then came the only exhale of that entire night. Million was found safe at his paternal grandmother's home in Prince George's County. Jeter had dropped the child off before the chase ended. The baby was okay. Raven was still gone. Royal, the 10-year-old, had been treated at the hospital and released. She was recovering physically, but she was back at the vigil days later, arm in a sling, surrounded by purple and white balloons, Raven's favorite colors, while the people who loved her mother filled the courtyard where it had all happened. That detail alone says everything about that child. Raven's 8-year-old son was with family. Million was reportedly in the care of his paternal grandmother. 3 children, 3 different sets of arms holding them, and none of those arms belonged to their mother. A neighbor who had spoken to the kids on the street, just in passing, the way neighbors do, described the shock of it simply. These were pretty young kids.
It's a complete tragedy. I think a family has sort of been broken and something's been lost, and I think everyone in the neighborhood has been really taken aback. I mean, these were pretty young kids and they were very sweet, and I spoke to them on a couple of occasions, it's just deeply unexpected.
He didn't have much more than that, because there isn't much more to say when something like this lands in your neighborhood on a Wednesday afternoon. There was no trial, no courtroom, no lawyers, no moment where Stefon Jeter had to sit across from the family he destroyed and account for any of it. He made sure of that. The moment those officers closed in, he took the one exit that required the least courage. So the questions Raven's family deserved answered. Why, after everything, he couldn't just let her go. Those questions went with him. A senior D.C. police official spoke publicly after the incident. He didn't soften it. "This is one of the most tragic circumstances I've ever seen," he said. "An entire family is destroyed through the acts of an individual. Right now, we have a missing child. We have another child suffering from a gunshot wound. We have a mother who's dead. Her children will never have their mother again. Never." That word, never, landed the way it was meant to. What made it worse was this. In the middle of processing the scene, with one child in the hospital and one child unaccounted for, investigators couldn't even pin down exactly where Jeter lived. He had multiple addresses associated with his name. Nothing clean, nothing simple. Just a man who had been drifting through Raven's life like something she couldn't fully get rid of, no matter how many times she changed the locks. In the days that followed, Raven's family gathered publicly to honor her. Purple and white everywhere. Her colors. People who had known her for years stood in that same courtyard and tried to find words for someone who, by every account, had never made herself the center of anything. Her brother Raymond spoke. He said she was the one who was going to hold the family together. Even in her death, he noted she was doing exactly that, bringing people back to each other, Her mother, Lucy, eventually spoke to the press, and she did not speak in anger, even though nobody would have blamed her if she had. She spoke like a woman still trying to hold on to her daughter. She said Raven never raised her voice. She said it had been a constant struggle, trying to help her get to a place where she would just be okay. Not extraordinary, not perfect, just okay, safe, present. It's not that she wasn't trying to get away, Lucy said. She had been trying to move. That matters, because the question always surfaces, why didn't she leave? And Lucy answered it before anyone could ask. Raven was leaving. She was doing it with a body that was failing her, 3 children depending on her, no income, and a man who kept finding ways to make it harder. She was in the process. She just didn't get to finish it. That is not a failure on her part. That is the reality of what leaving actually looks like for a lot of women in dangerous situations. It is not a single decision made on a single day. It is a long, exhausting, resource-dependent process, and sometimes it gets interrupted before it can reach the other side. Raven's did. Raven Edwards is not remembered for how she died. She is remembered for how she lived, quietly, completely, with everything she had left in a body that was already running out of time. She showed up for her children when most people would have been too exhausted to function. She never stopped trying to build something stable, something safe, even when the ground kept shifting under her. Her family described her as a second mother to people outside her own household, the kind of woman who walked into a room and made it warmer without trying. Her brother Raymond said she was the one who was going to keep everyone together, and in a painful, unintended way, he was right. Because in the weeks after her death, the people who loved her kept finding their way back to each other, drawn together by the same grief, the same disbelief, the same need to say her name out loud. That was Raven, still pulling people toward each other, even after she was gone. 3 children are growing up without her. Royal, the 10-year-old who took a bullet in that courtyard because she refused to stop defending her mother, is going to be okay physically. But she is 10 years old, and she already knows what it costs to stand up for someone you love. She learned that in the worst possible way, in the worst possible moment, at an age when she should not have had to learn it at all. Raven's 8-year-old son was there. He saw everything. He walked away without a physical injury, and that word, unharmed, will follow him in reports and records. But there is no version of witnessing that which leaves a child unharmed. He is carrying something now that no child should have to carry. And Millian, the 3-year-old at the center of that Amber Alert the child Jeter took with him when he fled, is safe. He is being raised by his paternal grandmother. He will grow up without his mother because of his father. He is too young to understand any of it right now. One day he will not be. There is something that gets said after cases like this, usually quietly, usually by people who already know the answer. Why didn't she just leave? Lucy Edwards answered that question without being asked. Her daughter was leaving. She was doing it the only way available to her, slowly, carefully, with no income, a failing body, 3 children, and a man who kept closing the distance she was trying to create. The locks, the distance, the boundaries. She was doing everything right, everything people say to do. And it was not enough, because the system around her was not moving as fast as the threat was. Threats were dismissed as drama. Stolen keys were treated as a domestic dispute. Changed locks were an inconvenience the family absorbed out of pocket, not a red flag the system absorbed with any urgency. By the time February 11th arrived, Raven had done everything within her power. What she needed, and what was never fully there, was the weight of something larger standing between her and him. That is the part worth sitting with. When a woman tells you she is afraid, believe her. When a family says it has been an ongoing situation, take it seriously. Threats are not just words. Changed locks are not just inconveniences. A pattern of control, keys taken, messages sent, death wished, is not a private matter. It is a signal. And too often, by the time the response matches the weight of what was actually happening, it is already too late. Raven deserved more time, more safety, more of everything. She deserved to finish the process of leaving. She deserved to get to the other side of it, to whatever quiet, ordinary life she was trying to build for herself and her children. She deserved to see Royal grow up. She deserved to be there when Millian was old enough to remember her face. She was 34 years old. Rest, Raven.